A female cop alone on Christmas, one kind mechanic's choice changed everything. The streets were unusually quiet that Christmas Eve, blanketed under a thin layer of snow that reflected the pale glow of streetlights. Officer Sarah Malone sat alone in her patrol car, gripping the steering wheel, her breath fogging in the cold night air. She had spent the day answering emergency calls, comforting frightened citizens, and witnessing the quiet heartbreaks of a city that never truly stopped moving, even on a day meant for joy. But tonight, Sarah felt the weight of loneliness pressing harder than any case file, harder than any danger she had faced in her 3 years on the force. Every passing car, every shadow along the pavement reminded her of the life she longed to be a part of, but seemed just out of reach. Her phone sat silent in her pocket, no messages from family, no cheerful texts from friends, just snow, sirens, and the steady hum of the engine. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the magic of small gestures that change lives, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to KH Stories. Sarah's shift had been exhausting, but it wasn't just fatigue that dragged at her spirit. A week ago, she had lost her father, the man who had always celebrated her victories, no matter how small. Christmas had always been his favorite, and now, the empty apartment she returned to every night felt colder than the streets she patrolled. Tonight, she drove past families gathering, laughter spilling from warmly lit homes, and the ache in her chest made each mile feel heavier. She parked near a familiar street corner, sipping her lukewarm coffee, trying to ignore the tight knot in her chest. A sudden squeal of brakes broke her reverie. She looked up to see a small sedan stuck in a patch of ice, its tires spinning helplessly. The driver, a man with kind eyes and a worn winter jacket, stepped out, shivering in the cold. Sarah recognized the fear in his eyes immediately. She had seen it countless times in her line of work. Without thinking, she stepped out of her car, her boots crunching in the snow, and approached him. The man, a mechanic named Daniel, introduced himself with a nervous smile. He had been on his way to deliver a small Christmas gift to his niece, but ended up stranded. Sarah instinctively offered to help, but Daniel shook his head, embarrassed. "I can handle this," he said, yet the car remained stubbornly stuck. She offered words of encouragement, small gestures of kindness that cut through the tension, and slowly, they worked together to free the vehicle. As the snow fell heavier around them, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them, their breath visible in the cold night, their hands occasionally brushing while pushing and maneuvering the car. There was a quiet understanding between them, a shared loneliness neither had expected to find in a stranger. Sarah realized with a jolt that sometimes human connection arrived when least expected, in the most ordinary of places, like a car stuck on icy pavement on Christmas Eve. Hours passed. Sarah watched Daniel work tirelessly, his hands numb, yet he refused to let the situation defeat him. And then, when the car finally slid free, Daniel invited her to join him for a cup of coffee at a nearby diner, a gesture that felt so small, yet so monumental. It was the first warmth she had felt all day, not from the steam of a mug, but from the simple act of human kindness. Over the hum of the diner's heater, Sarah opened up, telling Daniel about her father, about the emptiness of the holidays since his passing, about the isolation of her job. Daniel listened without judgment, offering only empathy, his own story of loss quietly threading through their conversation. He told her about his mother, who had passed years ago, and the niece who depended on him to keep the spirit of Christmas alive. Two strangers, united by grief, found comfort in shared understanding, and for a moment, the world outside melted away. The night stretched on, but Sarah felt lighter, as if the act of letting someone in, even briefly, had lifted a weight she didn't realize she had been carrying. When she returned to her patrol car, the city no longer seemed quite so cold. The streets were the same, the snow unchanged, but something in her had shifted. Daniel's kindness, his patience, and his willingness to see her. not just as a cop on duty, but as a human being, rekindled a sense of hope she thought she had lost forever. As she drove back to her apartment, Sarah noticed small acts of warmth all around. A neighbor helping carry groceries, a young couple exchanging laughter under a streetlight, a family placing candles on a windowsill. It wasn't just Christmas magic. It was proof that kindness, no matter how small, rippled through the world in ways we often fail to see. And for Sarah, one night of shared effort and quiet understanding had reminded her that even on the loneliest of nights, human connection could restore what grief had taken. Before we finish, if this story has touched your heart, please comment below on a moment that reminded you of kindness or second chances. Your words might inspire someone else. When Sarah finally stepped into her apartment that night, she didn't feel the same emptiness she had when the shift began. She brewed a cup of tea, wrapped herself in her father's old scarf, and smiled softly to herself. In a city full of strangers, she had found a kindred spirit. And in that connection, she realized that even on nights of solitude, the warmth of human compassion could light the darkest corners of our hearts. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to KH Stories to support more stories of hope, kindness, and human connection.